He said, Reza, in corruption, there are no sacred cows. In Zimbabwe, I want you to, if you can't hear properly what I'm saying, I want you to read my lips. There are no sacred cows in the fight against corruption. That is what His Excellency has said, and that is the
What
stance.
I was receiving was that the commission was even more corrupt than the work it was supposed to be doing. So I dismissed the whole commission. I created a new one, anti-corruption. And at the head of that corruption is a lady, a woman, whose history is very, very...
Lord of them loot, them loot, them loot, them loot. Hospitals, no medication, them loot. Them loot, them loot, them loot.
Now this is the free talk.
The Auditor General's report is out, and it has been subject of debate since it was released last week around Friday. A lot of conversations are happening around it. And the Public Accounts Committee has said it has started hearings into some of the allegations that have been pointed out in the Auditor General's report. It is at this moment that most Zimbabweans feel the absence of the former chairperson of the Public Accounts and Finance Committee, Honorable Tendai Biti. Now, we felt it prudent on this, the Free Talk, proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, to seek him out and hear his voice on the implications and what he understands about and what is contained in the audit report. So join me just after this break as we talk the Auditor General's report, oversight role and corruption in Zimbabwe. Welcome back to this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, here on Heart and Soul TV and radio. And I'm your host as usual, Dara B. Now, I welcome my guest this evening, Honorable Tendai Biti. Thank you very much for joining me.
Good evening, Dara.
Beautiful. Honorable, let us talk about the audit report. You know, it was released last week, and Zimbabweans are talking about it, but just your general, assessment of the report.
Yeah, well, so there are in fact two audit reports that have been made public. So there is the 2022 audit report, which in fact was completed by the Auditor General on the 28th of August 2023, just after the election last year. Then there's the 2023 audit report, which she completed in June of this year. But they've all been tabled in Parliament last week. So for an idea of what is happening, I urge Zimbabweans to actually read the two reports, the 2022 report and the 2023 report. I would also submit that please read the 2021 report. So you've got the 2021, 2022 and 2023 report. The regrettable thing about these reports, they show a total collapse of the institution of government. They show rampant, unbridled corruption, arbitrage, rent behavior. The biggest existential crisis which we now face in Zimbabwe is the way in which this regime, this so-called Second Republic, has eaten inside of the state broken all checks and balances, broken all systems, broken all ordinary rules of checks and balances to reduce Zimbabwe to an absolute kleptomania, an absolute kakistocracy. We are truly the corruption capital of the world. And I say this with great respect to South Africa, with great respect to Nigeria. They've destroyed the institution. They've absolutely destroyed the institution. If you look at 2021, 2022, 2023, the audit reports make it clear that the biggest issues facing her work is governance issues. And governance issues is a euphemism for corruption. If you read the final statement issued by the IMF 3 weeks ago, when they concluded their Article 4 consultations, they come up with the elephant in the living room, which is corruption. So what these audit reports, by omission and commission, I say omission because a lot of things are left out in those reports. And regrettably, the audit reports have been bent, have been manipulated. They don't comply with the law, but even the little that they reveal show a complete total collapse of public management systems as we know it, show a complete collapse of accountability and transparency as required by the Public Finance Management Act, as required by the Constitution. So it is a dog's breakfast. It is a complete disaster, and we Zimbabweans are not angry enough, because if we're angry enough, we'll be on the streets like the Kenyans.
Now you said there are a lot of omissions. Let's talk about the omissions. What are the glaring omissions that are in the audit report?
Yes. So in terms of the Constitution, the Auditor General is a supreme audit institution, a supreme audit institution that is supposed to be independent. In terms of her work, she is bound by certain professional standards. There is an organization of these supreme audit institutions called INDOSAI, International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions. So way back in the 70s, it came up with what is called the Lima Declaration, which are standards, high standards of these audit reports. So there are certain things that ought to be done which have not been done in the audits of Zimbabwe, in the Auditor General's report from 2019 to the present. So you are supposed, in terms of the law, in terms of section 309 subsection 2 of the Constitution, the Auditor General is supposed to audit every account of a ministry, every parastatal and every local authority. So if you present an audit report where certain appropriation accounts are missing, that is not a complete audit. It doesn't comply with international law, it doesn't comply with international standards. Our own law, so I've mentioned section 309 subsection 2. I need to mention section 335 subsection 2 of the Public Finance Management Act, which says that every appropriation account, which is a ministry, as you know, the way the budget works is that we go to Parliament, we approve budgets from an appropriation account. So every ministry, Minister of Home Affairs, for instance, will have 4 million. Minister of Women, 10 million. Minister of Sport, 15 million. Each of these appropriations must be audited. So section 35 subsection 2 of the Public Finance Management Act says at the end of every year, after 1 month, that is to say by end of January, every accounting officer, that is to say a permanent secretary, must submit directly to the Auditor General his own accounts for auditing. And remember, the same Public Finance Management Act says every month every ministry must publish its accounts. That has not been happening. So the Auditor General must audit each individual account separately. Then in terms of section 35 and section 35 bracket 5 and section 35 bracket 6 of the Public Finance Management Act, the Auditor General must then audit the overall consolidated accounts. But the overall audited accounts are including special separate votes or ministries. That's why if you look at the 2023 audit, you will see 23 ministries, but they are called votes. So vote 1 is the office of the president and cabinet. Vote 3 is parliament. Vote 5, which is the most important, is the Ministry of Finance. Minister of Justice, I think it's vote 19. Minister of Higher Education, I think it's vote 12. Minister of Lands and Agriculture, I think it's vote 8. So these are, so they have to be audited separately. Then statutory commissions, your Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, your Human Rights Commission, your Electoral Commission have to be audited separately. They have to be audited separately, but they are contained in those same volumes. Now, what has been happening since 2019 is that the appropriation account of the Ministry of Finance is not being included in these audit reports. So if you go to the current one, the 2023 one, you will not see the appropriation account for 2023 of the Ministry of Finance. There are other ministries that are missing as well. For instance, Ministry of Higher Education. If you go into the same report, you will see, for instance, under Ministry of Justice, the appropriation account of the appropriation account for 2023 and for 2022, meaning in 2022 the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Finance and other ministries also did not have their appropriation account. So in short, the audit reports are missing critical information of important institutions that are supposed to be audited. Regrettably, the things that are being missed are the vehicles of corruption. So the Ministry of Finance, as I will explain later, has become the center of corruption. Its vote is not audited. The Ministry of Transport, if you go to the 2023 report, their vote is not there. The the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, its audit statement is not there. This has been happening since 2019 to now. Votes are being omitted, votes of the most critical departments of government. So if you don't have the Ministry of Finance, which is the most important ministry, you can't have you can't present an audit report that presents a fair and clear picture of the overall government accounts, because that is the engine room. That is the engine room. That is the heart. That is the midfield fulcrum. If you like, if in rugby it's the fly half. In American football it's the quarterback. In football is the football maestro, the main ministry, the Ministry of Finance.
Let's talk about the Ministry of Finance that you mentioned. Part of the audit report says that at least about 3 million went missing from that came from the Consolidated Revenue Fund to the Ministry of Finance and was supposed to be distributed to ministries. But that money is not accounted.
Those are. You see, what the audit report has done, it has given snippets of corruption. So for instance, the thing that most Zimbabweans are talking about right now is the undelivered vehicles, of 60 vehicles undelivered, 157 laptops not delivered. Yes, people should talk about that. Fuel has become a major source of looting. So millions and millions of liters of fuel are not accounted. Zimbabweans should talk about. But the real issue is vote 5, the Ministry of Finance. So if you go to the introduction of this report, of the 2023 report, the Auditor General lets the cat out of the bag. And I think she's basically saying, look, I'm not independent. Because she then says that this Ministry of Finance has been extremely naughty. So she says in 2022, the actual budget was 90 billion dollars. That's 2022. $90 billion was the actual budget. But there's a creature called the unallocated reserve. So 600 billion were allocated. Of that 600 billion, a total of 534 billion was allocated by the Ministry of Finance, which was not approved by Parliament. So the original budget is 90 billion, and an extra 534 billion is allocated, meaning that 534 billion plus 90 billion was spent in 2022. Now, if you do your mathematics as I've done, 534 over 90 is a total expenditure of over 400%. So the Ministry of Finance, without parliamentary approval, spent over 400% of the original budget. That's 2022. 2023, the original budget is 2.4 trillion. What is actually eventually spent is about 12 trillion. What is spent without parliamentary approval, according to the audit report, and she says this is about 8.7 trillion. The auditor in her calculations puts the over expenditure, the unapproved expenditure, to 241%. I've done my own calculations. It's coming to around 333%. But it doesn't matter the actual figure. The fact of the matter is that the Ministry of Finance is spending at least 300% of a budget which has not been unallocated. Then you come to the second disturbing thing. The Auditor General then says these are unallocated allocations which are being made by the ministry directly are not being done through the public finance management system. The public finance management system is the software, it's the computer. It's actually basically using ICTs to do the transfer. They are being done offline, meaning there is no accountability. There is no checks and balances. So effectively, the Ministry of Finance has become the center of corruption, distributing billions and billions of dollars outside Parliament, outside the public finance management system, which can catch thieving immediately at the stroke of a keyboard. Now, the way the law is designed, the Public Finance Management Act, the law is designed in such a way that, number one, and also treasury instructions produced by the ministry itself. The Ministry of Finance is an allocating ministry. Parliament approves and says we are giving 10 million to higher education, we're giving 10 million to youth, we're giving 12 million to the Ministry of Defense. The role of the Ministry of Finance is just to allocate. Once it is allocated, the role of the ministry is an audit function. It is to follow that money and ensure that the money has been spent in accordance with the Blue Book, i.e., in accordance with the instruction given by Parliament, the authority given by Parliament. And when that money is sent to the ministry, two things must happen. First, there must be a warrant, a written warrant from the Accountant General saying, please spend that money. Two, there must be confirmation. Two things, warrant and confirmation. That is according to the law. Now you have a situation where, so the Ministry of Finance therefore is basically the gatekeeper. It plays an audit role in terms of all the finances that it gives. But here you now have the gatekeeper becoming the gate crusher. The gatekeeper is now distributing outside the public finance management system. Now, if the guard becomes the thief, who will guard the guard? So you now have a situation where traditionally the Ministry of Finance is the shepherd, but there's a bigger shepherd, which is Parliament. But the Ministry of Finance has now become a predatory wolf that is now shepherding these little lambs. By the way, they are not lambs at all. All these ministries are monsters. So that is what I mean, that they've destroyed this government. They've destroyed the institution. The checks and balances are not there because all payments are now being made from the Ministry of Finance. And I know that people are getting cuts. If you look at that audit report, over 300 million, around 277 million US dollars was paid directly by the Ministry of Finance to places and persons we don't know and outside the public finance management system. So Chinchawora Dara, it's sad, it makes you angry, it makes you sad. This country is gone to the dogs.
Now let's talk about The 500 billion that you're talking about versus the 90 billion.
534, yeah. That was in 2022.
Yes. Is it not a case of inflation that it was still the same value but different amounts?
No. No. It's not inflation. It's actually remember, many of these payments are actually in US dollars. So it's not inflation. It's even if it's inflation, Dara, there's a mechanism that is designed to deal with inflation. It's called a supplementary budget. The Minister of Finance simply needs to go to Parliament and ask for a supplementary allocation. It has been happening over the years. I used to do it once or twice. This is pure chicanery. This is pure theft. This is pure arbitrage. This is pure rent seeking. It's an absolute breach of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. It's an absolute breach of the Public Finance Management Act.
So there's been an argument that the Minister of Finance has been forced to do direct payments to suppliers in order to curb corruption. What would be your pushback on that?
Look, literally all the payments are now being done by the Ministry of Finance. So if you read those audit reports from 2019, 2020, 2021, 2023, one of the things that will strike you is the levels of underspending of ministries. So literally every vote is underspending. But the bulk of the payments are being done through the unallocated reserve. They call it the UR. So the Ministry of Finance has decided to become this super government, now undermining ministries by making these direct payments over issues that they don't have to do. It's not their job, and that's why the Auditor General keeps on saying, why are you making these payments? You are breaching your Treasury Instruction number 13. You are breaching the Public Finance Management Act, because your job is simply to allocate the Consolidated Revenue Fund after it has been approved by Parliament. So deliberately, the Ministry of Finance has collapsed the institution of government, and the buck stops with Mtuli Ngube, the buck stops with George Guamatang.
And we have this issue around ZEC. I mean, that you said it was excluded from, and this is where we are talking about the 40 million United States dollars that has brought us the issues around Wiki. Now let's talk about that.
Yeah, so you have got what ministries? So the Ministry of Finance is top of the list. The Ministry of Transport is also top of the list, because huge amounts of money are being channeled through the Ministry of Transport
on the
roads. But if you go to the 2023 audit report, the appropriation account of the Ministry of Transport is not there. It's not there at all. ZEC, we know there was a huge election, harmonized election last year. Therefore, you would expect the account of ZEC to be there. It's not there. So the Ministry of Finance is not there. The Ministry of Transport is not there. The Ministry of Higher Education is not there. I don't know why. ZEC is not there. So the Auditor General cannot therefore say, I've done my work for 2023. She has not complied with Section 309, Subsection 2 of the Constitution that says you audit every account. She has not complied with Section 10 of the Audit Office Act, which says you audit every account and present it to Parliament through the Minister. She has not complied with Section 35 and Section 32 of the Public Finance Management Act, which says you audit every account and you tell Zimbabweans what you have found out. So this audit is not consistent with international audit standards, but I suspect she's being arm twisted by the Minister of Finance. And Mtuli is in the habit of hiding information. 2-3 years ago, we had the IMF coming here for an Article 4 report. It has not come out because he has refused its publication. Now what he's doing, assaulting the institutions of Zimbabwe, debasing the institutions of Zimbabwe by preventing the Auditor General from doing a job. So now if you look at the 2023 account, these figures I'm giving you for 2023, that the Ministry of Finance spent unallocated reserves of 8.7 trillion, which according to the Auditor General is 241%. They're coming from the audit report, yet the appropriation account is not there. So what is she saying? The Auditor General is saying to people, I've got it, but someone is preventing me from publishing it. So when you get to vote 5, it's not there, but already in the introductory note where she's talking about those things, she has said, oh, they overspent by 8.7 trillion. So she has it, but she can't publish it. And part of your weakness is that she's still in an acting capacity. Mrs. Chiri has not been replaced, which is why Parliament must hold Mutuli to account. I see they're calling vehicle suppliers who have not supplied. Fine, but the real culprit is Mutuli Singube. The real culprit is George Goamatanga. They must be summoned urgently by the public accounts committee.
Yeah, but in your view, I mean, we are doing roads mostly on a cash basis, and the fact that this road network is not being audited, what does it say in your view?
I've said, Dara, that we've truly become a kleptomanic state. We all want development. We all want our country to be uplifted. This country, with great respect to the DRC, is the portable capital of our roads. Look at rural roads. Look at urban roads. Go to Highlands. Go to Greenbelt. The state of the roads are shocking and pathetic. So we want improvement of the roads, but public procurement must be done consistent with the law. So there must be tender bids. There must be a budget. Parliament must approve the budget. That is not happening. So what they've done now is to create a pot for themselves, which they loot, which they pay their cronies. If you look at the people who are doing those roads, it's the same companies that we know are part of the crony infrastructure of Zanu PF and the Second Republic. And if the auditor were to do a job, she will learn one thing: the cost of a kilometer of a road to rehabilitate or construct internationally is about $1 million. So if you're going to do Harare by the bridge, which is about 500 kilometers, you know that your initial cost is 500 million, then the cost of money, the charges and so forth. So you can get away with 700 million US dollars. But what these guys are doing now is that they are paying literally at 3 million US dollars. But this money is being paid in RTGS or in ZIG. And once it's paid, the contractors now must rush to the black market, which is why consistently the currency must collapse. Once they have been paid, the currency must collapse, but there's now suddenly too much money chasing too few US dollars. So the Zimbabwean dollar collapses. This ZIG is going to collapse again for that same phenomenon. So what is collapsing the Zimbabwean dollar is corruption that is being born by the overprinting of money to finance these gross capital formation projects, the roads. Look at Bait Bridge. To upgrade Bait Bridge, we needed 40 million US dollars. They are doing it for more than $200 million. The flyover at Mbudzi, to do it would have required 20 million. They are doing it at $80 million. So the whole state, the Zimbabwean state, has become a huge pot of cooking deals and looting, and these audit reports confirm that we've truly and thoroughly become a banana republic. No controls, no checks and balance, total emasculation of the institution of the state of Zimbabwe as we have always known it. Because if there are no checks and balances, if there's no accountability, then you don't have a country to talk about.
There's been issues around the cost of money that you're talking about, that we are under sanctions and the cost of money is very, very high in this country, and therefore this has been the major reason that pushes cost, not corruption.
That's total madness, Idara. That's total madness. We must comply with our laws. And the Americans, the British, the European Union come nowhere near the aspect of us pursuing and executing good governance, complying with our constitution, complying with our Public Finance Management Act, complying with our Audit Office Act. Chinamasa actually used to do it. The sad thing is that Mutuli Ngube and George Guamatanga have made Chinamasa look like an angel. And trust me, Chinamasa is not an angel at all. But I used to call them Zhigananda. They are not Zhigananda. They are monsters.
Bishop.
No, they insult my bishop. It's unbelievable. We are not angry enough. This report, give it to General Z in Kenya, and you see the country burning. It's ridiculous, the levels that they've taken this country to, that you destroy every institution. And I don't know what the accounting general is doing, because he or she must follow up on this massive. If you look at that audit report, 60% of the government accounts are qualified. Even those that are not qualified, if you read, there is always a department which is qualified. So it's a truly banana republic. And this audit report, with its imperfections, has exposed them.
You spoke about over 400% expenditure that was budgeted for. I mean, where did this financing of this 400% come from? And going forward, is there a possibility that the new governor at the central bank is going to stop such excesses?
They've been printing money. They've been printing money. They've been printing the RTGS. And with the RTGS, they don't have to print. It's what money. They just credit your account. Physically, you don't get it. You've never seen. I've never seen a zig in real life. So it's just mirror transactions because it's a fiat account. So they've been creating this asymmetrical fiat currency of trade, paying contractors and so forth. So that's why the economy has been overheating. Too much money chasing too few goods, and that's why we've got the highest level of inflation in the world. John Party 2 is a small boy, Pikinini. You can't deal with these people. They are beyond him. You can't rein in George Guamatanga. No one can. I don't even think that Emerson Mnangagwa can rein in George Guamatanga.
Who is the president?
You can't rein in George Guamatanga.
Are you saying that there is a parallel government?
I will look. I challenge him to take action. The levels of corruption are unbelievable. The levels of looting are unbelievable. If you spend over 400%, 500%, 600%, or to take the modest figure of 241% given by the Auditor General in your report, you are a criminal. You deserve to be in Chikurubi.
I want us to talk about the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission in the face of such revelations. Do you think they are up to the task?
They have to. You see, what's happening now is that I was going through all the. I've gone through every vote, and there's no clean account there. There's no clean account there. If it's not vehicles, it's fuel. If it's not fuel, it's failure to maintain, asset registers, failure to collect debts, and so forth. It's a collapse, a total collapse. So you need fundamental overhaul of the system. You need a fundamental rebooting of the system. And regrettably, I don't think you can do it without a change of government. I don't want to talk politics. But that's the reality. Unless people provide agencies, we've seen in Kenya, then we have a problem. But speaking of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption and the National Prosecuting Authority, these fellows have taken this looting to stratospheric levels. So I would submit that they need serious technical assistance. They need experts. Yeah, they need experts who spend their time forensically going over those, over those books. They will be shocked. Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture, the looting of the presidential scheme, the looting of the input, schemes. These things like GOTI schemes, the Mike Chimombes of this world. These are. These are small things. These are small things. There is a massive blunder of this country along the lines of the pioneer column. by our own government, by people in this government. So Zach and Mr. Michael Reza need to bolster that institution, finance and support young, clever children from UZ, from MSU, from NAST, send them to top universities to train them into forensic crime fighting, forensic examinations, money laundering, asset stripping, and illicit financial flows. As far as our institutions are presently constituted, they are dwarfed by the levels of corruption. It's beyond them. So they need to boost both the National Prosecuting Authority and the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission.
In the past, we have not seen any direct action coming from ZAC around this audit. You're talking about 2019, 2021, 2022. Almost similar issues arise, but there's never been action. Does that bother you? Did it bother you even when you were the public accounts chairperson in Parliament?
I think Parliament is a very powerful institution. So Parliament must continue doing its job. I see that they're trying to muzzle the Public Accounts Committee. I read the reports that people are being summoned and they're not going. Parliament possesses powers of arresting people, placing people in contempt. So I appeal to Parliament to rise and look the beast of corruption in the eyes, because people follow the proceedings of Parliament. People follow the reports of Parliament very keenly. Donors, embassies, they follow. So Parliament must do its work. During my time, we stood our ground. People were fired. The Accountant General, resigned. People were shifted and so forth. That's the power of Parliament. Those reports don't go away. Don't go away. And Parliament must also move to strengthen the laws. The Public Finance Management Act needs to be strengthened yesterday. There needs to be a clear provision, not in the instructions, but in the act, that line ministries must get their money. Audit offices need to be established. I suspect we need now the office of an ombudsman, who is now going to guard George Guvamatanga and company, because the shepherd has become the wolf, the shepherd has become the monster. So it's a state of affairs, Dara, and I've never been so heartbroken as I am reading those reports. One of the things that I want to mention is that I said they've not been publishing these audits, appropriation accounts in particular for the Minister of Finance from 2019. So what happened is that in respect of the year 2021, the Auditor General in August of last year actually published a supplementary audit report for 12 or so appropriation accounts that she had not included in the 2021 report. It was on her website. I looked at it. The Minister of Finance for 2021 overspent by 640%. But yesterday, as I was preparing for this interview, I go on the website. That supplementary report for arrears has been removed. For 2021, has been removed. So I say, is this deliberate? Do they think that we are illiterate and so forth? But the bottom line is that they are taking us for granted. The bottom line is that the country has truly gone to the dogs. The bottom line is that the Second Republic here has redefined corruption and kleptomania. Mugabe is standing in his grave, and Mugabe was not an angel at all. Chinamasa is screaming somewhere, and Chinamasa is not an angel. And sadly, the people who are suffering the cannon fodder are the ordinary Wananji in Dotito, in Chendambuya, in Ngai, in Cholocho, in Odzani, in Beitbridge.
You speak about the Public Finance Act, but and I want to talk about this around the issue of vehicles that were not delivered. That doesn't it compel government or government agencies to pay upon delivery and not before?
Dara, the issues of vehicles not being delivered is an issue that is reported in every audit report. So every year there are vehicles that are not delivered.
From the same suppliers.
Same characters, the puzzle busters of this world, the solution motors of this world. But it's not just vehicles. All aeroplanes have disappeared. This country has disappeared 2 aeroplanes. So with the vehicles, no one cares. Nobody cares. My suspicion is that vehicles are delivered there. They're just not delivered officially, but vehicles are delivered. Visit the home of any permanent secretaries. Find how many cars are parked. Visit the home of any minister. Find how many cars are parked. Visit the home of any principal director. Find how many cars are parked. So cars are delivered, but they are just not delivered officially and at the correct addresses at Munumutapa, at Kaguvi. And that is what I suspect, because how else can you explain the lackadaisicness, the indifference to the failure to protect public assets? In this 2023 audit, 60 vehicles, 157 laptops, including buses, who disappears buses. But why is contraction? Why is public procurement? Which is why I said the vehicles are delivered. Because if I contract you to say, Dara, I'm a farmer, and indeed I'm a farmer, deliver to me 30 tons of maize, and I pay you in upfront, and you don't deliver, I still continue going to you, something must be happening. It must mean that we've got an incestuous relationship somewhere. That is why the same dubious companies, the puzzle busters of this world, the solution world, some of them I don't even know them by Zanti. What is that? Who is doing the due diligence? And the auditor picks it up. Why are you paying these people upfront? In some of the contracts, I can't remember which vote, they even paid for the duty, even though the contractor was supposed to pay for the duty of the. So this is a truly kakistocratic state, a corrupt country run by the West among us.
I've seen some suggestions that some of these vehicles are actually delivered at the party office, at the Zanu PF, the ruling party office. Would that make sense?
Absolutely. If you look at, and nobody's talking about this, if you go to the 2022 report, if you go to the 2023 report, you're talking about vehicles. One of the things that will strike you is the millions of liters that are being stolen of fuel coupons, millions. And the most notorious ministry is actually local government. So I have no doubt in my mind that Treasury is funding Zanu PF through particularly fuel and vehicles. If I'm wrong, let's carry a forensic audit. So there are no vouchers of these payments. There are no vouchers of these transactions. And it's a story along the line, which is why bureaucrats, and I know in government, they are good people. They are not raising their head because they know where the money is going to. And the Wikino Chivhayo ZEC show the conflation between the state and Zanu PF and its cronies. So it's as clear as a pike staff.
Amazing. But I also want us to look at what the law says in terms of procurement. I mean, we saw that the procurement, the price is housed in the president's office. Does that make, this was supposed to make procurement more transparent and more efficient. Has this helped in any way?
That on its own is a problem, because the president is the overseer. So the president is the one who ultimately is the country's chief executive officer. So the buck stops with him. So if he is now going to take these sensitive areas of governance into his own, you've got a problem, because who then guards the guard? In every other country, your state procurement board is a semi-independent executive a body which works closely with the audit office, which works closely with Parliament, with the Public Accounts Committee, because you are basically protecting the public Public procurement is there. The reason why Section 325 of the Constitution says public procurement must be transparent. The reason why Chapter 9 of the Constitution says that we need transparency and accountability is because you are protecting the public, you are protecting the citizen. So these institutions must be autonomous or semi-autonomous. And once you then house and you make the president oversee the Procurement Act, there's a fundamental problem. There's a fundamental problem. Because remember, it is the president who is being looked by these bodies. So you can't house the audit elements of the state in the person who is actually being scrutinized, which is the president and his executive. So it's a contradiction in terms. It's oxymoronic.
And given this that you have just mentioned, the president also put the Tapera fund in his office and excluded it in some of these, scrutiny, rather, by excluding it from going to these public tenders systems and stuff like that, given this audit report.
Not only that, Dara. The Tapera fund was created by presidential decree. The Tapera fund was created by a regulation made in terms of Section 2 of the Presidential Powers Act. Yet the Tapera fund is the most corrupt institution in the country in terms of the potential damage it is going to do to this country. The Tapera fund now houses shares of over 40 state-owned enterprises, including blue chip assets like CESA, for instance, Net One, for instance. Yet those shares have been made so fungible they can be traded outside the parliament. So what the president would then place himself at the center of corruption, and that's why citizens are not angry enough, because the country is being bled. The country is being bled openly, and we are not reacting. We are not responding.
Wow. Among the issue around confidence of a currency is how government manages finances. And the Zimbabwe gold, which was introduced recently, has fairly been stable on the market. Doesn't this show confidence in terms of how this government is running this economy?
I don't know what you mean by stable, because as I'm talking to you right now, rates are anything between 17 to 20. So there's a parallel a trade already. But you can't maintain the stability of a currency, and you can't boast of stability of the country when you are shielding it against the market. Number one, by simply not making it available. It's not there. It's not there. I run a law firm. Part of my obligations are actually in ZIG, but I can't get it. So I now find myself in the ironic position that I have to go to my bank and say, I want to liquidate my US dollars for ZIG, and the bank says, even us, we don't have. That's the reality. So it's like trying to cure diarrhea by not eating. It doesn't work. So ZIG must be liberalized so that market forces determine its true value. The IMF told them in this last report produced 2 weeks ago. And the real, if it's a currency, then it must function in every transaction. I challenge them to allow fuel to be sold in ZIG in Zimbabwe, to allow passports to be paid in ZIG in Zimbabwe, to allow the cost of airlines to be paid in ZIG. That's the true test of a currency, when you allow it and you open it up to proper market forces. If you go to South Africa, you buy fuel in rand and you pay for everything in rand. If you go to Mozambique, you buy fuel in Metcash and you pay for everything in Metcash. If you go to Zambia, you buy fuel in Kwacha and you pay for everything in Kwacha. If you go to Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, you buy fuel in shillings and you pay for everything in shillings. So you can't have an eclectic currency that works for tomatoes but doesn't work for bananas. It's not a currency, it's a fiction. So ZIG is a fiction that doesn't work and will not work.
But the argument is that we're in a multi-currency, and those who want to sell their fuel in ZIG can do so.
Which service station? If you find one, please tell me. My car is empty. That's fiction, This is a controlled currency that has not been allowed to find market discovery because it will collapse and collapse rapidly. Remember, by the time that they removed the RTGS, the exchange rate was almost 100,000. So they just postponed and held in abeyance the Armageddon, and ZIG will face the Armageddon that inevitably the RTGS was going to face.
But if it's failing, why are we in a deflation mode? Why is inflation low at this particular moment? Can you explain that?
We are not in a deflation mode, Dara. We are in a stagflation mode. A stagflation mode is a situation where the economy is stagnant. This economy, since the introduction of ZIG, is stagnant. There's a ZIG introduced depression. There's a ZIG introduced recession. There is no economic movement in this economy. There are no transactions. There is no trade. People have just shrunk and froze. So it's a stagflation. There's actually no economic movement, which is why if you look at the figures, the official figures from Zimra, they're not collecting any money. They're not collecting any revenue. There's no money at all. There's no movement at all. So it's not deflation. It's stagflation. It's stagnation. It's a recession induced by ZIG. Put simply, there's absolutely no confidence in this economy, and the drought hasn't helped, which is why our growth rate this year, I know the IMF has said 2%, I would say minus 2%. It's a Armageddon. It's a bloodshed.
We're building roads, we're building villas. Why are you saying we have nothing? This is in an economy, building roads, building villas is a stimulus to people spending, because people are earning salaries, aren't they?
I saw on social media yesterday huge pillars, concrete pillars, coming from Tapera, being imported to go to those villas. So the villas are a feeding trough. The roads are a feeding trough. You are right that in basic Keynesian economics, you can construct your way out of a crisis. In other words, programs of public programs of expenditure like roads can create a stimulus in the economy, people spending and so forth. But these are not people. These are cronies. The money is going to Mauritius. The money is going to Dubai. The money is going to Hong Kong. The money is going to some offshore accounts. The money is buying villas in Senton, in Bryanston, in Cape Town, which is why despite those spending, the huge spending, despite the overspending, it's not spilling over into the economy because it's a narrow a click. You have said just now that why is it the same companies? The same companies supplying vehicles, the same companies building roads, the same companies supplying laptops. So it's a few cronies, an individual, his children, and partners who are killing this country.
You also spoke about money being able to, the ZIG being able to be used to buy passports or to get a passport and fuel. And President Emerson Mnangagwa recently at a rally, he was addressing that he's not going to wait for 2030 to declare the Zimbabwe gold as the official currency and only currency in the country. Isn't this good news?
You see, they behave as if they think they control the economy. They behave as if they control human behavior. They're not in charge. They're not in charge from that sense.
Who's in charge?
The citizen will use and trade in a currency that protects his or her assets. The Zimbabwean dollar was displaced not by the wisdom of a government that said we are now dollarizing officially. By the time we started using the US dollar officially in 2009, when I was in government, the public had 2 years ago rejected the Zimbabwean dollar because it had become an instrument of arbitrage. In 2019, the same government, the same president, did he not demonetize the Zimbabwean dollar through statutory instrument 33 of 2019? Did we not introduce the RTGS dollar? Did we not pass statutory instrument in June of 2019, statutory instrument 142 of 2019, and said the US dollar is the sole legal tender? In 2 months, we had changed and undermined that. It's not possible to de-dollarize a country that is involuntarily de-dollarized. That's why right now there's a law, Section 34 of the Section 34 of the Finance Act 2013 says the US dollar will remain currency until the 31st of December 2030. I'm willing to bet, Dara, that if they change, I'll change my name to John Dotito. It will not happen because it's economics and they don't control economics.
Honorable Biti, before we close, I know we're not going to talk politics, but I want us to talk about this issue of succession. President Emerson Mnangagwa has said that he will not be extending his term of office. Is this good news for Zimbabwe and the economy?
If he meant it, it would be the best news we would have had, but he doesn't mean it. The man is actually on a serious campaign to extend the term of office. Look at what Munyaradzi Machacha is doing. Look at what Daniel Gari was doing in March East yesterday. Look at what his cronies are doing. So they are on a serious campaign mode to extend, to push for a 3rd term. And with the connivance of Chabangu and others, they control, parliament. So this is a disaster. They want to push this country to war. They want to push this country to Armageddon. I appeal to Emerson Mnangagwa, abandon this idea of a 3rd term. Abandon this idea of a 3rd term because it will lead this country to a war. But sadly, my plea and the plea of decent Zimbabweans will fall on deaf ears because the man is desperate. More so those in the courtyard, those that have been feeding from him, they are desperate to see that he continues. They're saying 2030. It's way after 2030. He wants the same 38 years that Robert Mugabe had. Fortunately or unfortunately, he doesn't have the 38 years that Mugabe had in 1980. So it's a disaster. This country is on a precipice. This country is on a knife edge because of these games that they're playing of trying to extend his term of office to 2030. It's a disaster, but unfortunately, one that will cause the necessary splitting of blood in this country. We lost over 50,000 people during the War of Liberation. We lost over 30,000 people during Gukura Wundi. We lost thousands of people during the birth of the MDC, the land reform program. Enough blood has been lost in this country. We are losing millions of people, thousands of people through the soft genocide of hospitals that don't have medicines, of hospitals that don't have cancer machines. Enough blood has been lost at the hands of Zanu PF. Tinzireyo tsitsi, tiregerereyo, hapana chataka kutadzirai.
So as you speak about that, he has no intentions, the president has no intentions of stepping down.
You be naive, Dara, and I know you're not naive to believe him. You be a fool to believe him, and I know you, blessed Mhlanga, you're not a fool.
I actually wrote a story, Honorable Biti, that from statements that were said by Douglas Monzo, that there is no intention by the president to step down. And the following morning, I received a $20 million United States lawsuit from President Emerson Mnangagwa saying that story is defamation because he has intention of stepping down. In your view, could that not be a clear statement?
No. He's already pushing for a 3rd term. The reason why he removed Bima and appointed a commissar who comes from his village, it is because his sole occupation and that of his family is the holy grail of the 2030 agenda. But unfortunately, it's an agenda that will cause this country to spill blood. Enough blood has been spilled in this country. Enough. So kwanele, we don't want as funu bumbulu.
Honorable Biti, why would someone sue for 20 million United States dollars on a project that they know they are pursuing? Unless
this is choreographed. This is choreographed. We have seen it in Africa. We have seen it in Uganda. You see, they never say they want. Let me tell you, these people, they never say they want. They actually come and say, we don't want. Then people in inverted commas say, Father, you can't go away. Then they turn around and say, but I can't ignore the people. The people have said they want me. So you're going to shriek at people in the next 2 years. Him saying, I don't want, and people saying, we want. Then you will say, I respect the people. The people have said we want. It's a script that we have seen being played in Uganda, in Kenya, in Malawi, in Nigeria. It's a tired script. This man wants to rule for life, period. They said they want me. So you're going to shriek at people in the next 2 years. Him saying, I don't want, and people saying, we want. Then you say, I respect the people. The people have said we want. It's a script that we have seen being played in Uganda, in Kenya, in Malawi, in Nigeria. It's a tired script. This man wants to rule for life, period.
I mean, let us talk as we close, Honorable Biti. Kenya forced President Ruto to withdraw a finance bill, and these demonstrations in Kenya were not led. There was not a single person who called for them to say, let's do this. No individual leader.
You're mistaken.
Even Ruto himself had to say, who's your leader? I want to speak to that leader.
Let me tell you, there is a powerful, organized group of youngsters behind what's happening in Kenya. The only thing is they are not your usual names, your Raila Odingas and so forth. But this thing is well organized, and it's carrying the people.
So in your view, you need to have a powerful, organized people because
citizens. Yeah, our problem is that, and we've discussed this. Our problem is that we want to delegate our own obligations and responsibility. We want to outsource our anger and expect that someone, a leader, is going to Kenya, South Africa, and everywhere, even the War of Liberation. Mugabe went to Mozambique in 1974. The war was burning because individuals, youngsters, crossed the missing link in Zimbabwe is not high-sounding political leadership. The missing link in Zimbabwe is agency. When I go to service stations, when I walk around, people always say to me, workers always say to Matregerera. And I say, no, you have let yourself down because you are not angry enough. You are not providing, agents. Then they say, but we look up to you for leadership. And I say, no, as long as you are thinking like that, this country will not go forward. And that's our Achilles heel. That is our challenge, the expectation that we must outsource our anger and we must outsource our spontaneity. That's why we are sunk, and that's why other countries are moving.
Those who have done that have been arrested. Those who have done that have been shot dead in the streets.
That is the price you pay. Zanu will laugh at you and say, but we went to war. 50,000 people were killed between 1965 and 1979. So they paid the ultimate price with their lives for change, for democracy in this country. If we think that it's going to be handed over a platter, or to use their own language. I saw Sanyatwe saying some crazy things. But those crazy things are true, regrettably. If we think they're just going to hand over There's no class that commits suicide. Zanu PF is not going to be the first liberation movement to commit suicide. And with what happened in South Africa, liberation movements are reorganizing. Right now, all liberation movements are plotting to steal the election in Mozambique right now. Right now, as I'm talking, thousands and thousands of Zimbabweans are being registered to go and vote in Mozambique. They will do so for Mozambique. They will do so for Chama Pinduzi in Tanzania. Liberation movements now are like this, like cobras with their head waiting to strike because of the shock of the ANC loss in South Africa. So in short, liberation movements, particularly these predatory liberation movements that fought long, drawn-out struggles, SWAPO of Namibia, Zanu PF of Zimbabwe, MPLA of Angola, Frelimo of Mozambique, they are not going to give it to you on a platter. You have to earn it by sacrificing. Constitutionally, legally, peacefully, shift the honors to them. Let them kill you, let them arrest you. But we are not shifting the honors to them. We are not expanding and increasing the cost of dictatorship. So ultimately, we deserve this madness, we deserve this theft, we deserve this kleptocracy, we deserve this kleptomania because we're impotent, we are useless.
Yes, I want to thank you very much, Honorable Biti, for your time. But as I normally do just before you go, something that sits heavily on your heart that you'd want to share with the people of Zimbabwe, please go ahead at this moment.
Two things. I say this. The third term agenda is a disaster. Second, there has to be an overhaul, immediate overhaul at the Ministry of Finance. The wolves are in charge. We have to get rid of the wolves as a matter of urgency.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Honorable Biti, and thank you for giving us these insights into the audit report and issues around also the body politic and what Zimbabweans ought to and should do for themselves in order to achieve, a state that presents opportunities for young people, a state that safeguards taxpayers' monies, and also a state that can compete on the table of nations. Now, this was and this will always be the Free Talk with me, your host as usual, Dara B, and I was in conversation, the former finance minister, the former Public Accounts Committee chairperson, Tendai Biti, who at his height and service in Parliament, after he demanded accountability as the head of the Public Finance Committee in Parliament, was recalled by a ghost. And when he went back to Parliament, his post had been already given to someone else. We miss those days where there was firebrand, questioning and issues being raised, and corruption or allegations of corruption being laid bare in Parliament. Thank you very much, Honorable Biti.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you. Thank you.
Kutengo kutenga sai